There's a type of person who apologizes before you even finish your sentence, who reads the room before they even walk into it, who when life slows down has to try to find something to fix, and who when you ask them how they feel, they give you a status report. These aren't personality traits. These aren't just who you are. These are examples of survival strategies developed when you were a kid and still running today. Childhood emotional neglect does not require a dramatic home. It doesn't require that somebody left or lost their mind. It can be a house where emotions simply are not on the table. No one broke down, no one talked about it, nothing was never not okay. And a child in that environment learns something, not consciously, not by choice. They learn what I feel is not safe to show. What I need is not worth asking for. And the way to stay okay is to manage everything myself. That's the code. And here's the thing about the code. It doesn't stop running just because the environment changed. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 6 ways in which these survival strategies can still play out in an adult life. These are not all of the strategies, but they're ones that I see quite often. Hyper-independence. You handle everything yourself. And this isn't because you're the strongest person in the world. It's often because asking for help and not getting it is even a more dangerous choice. Based on history, the nervous system has enough evidence that depending on others is not safe and doesn't yet have the evidence that it can be safe in the present day. In this way, you've probably been going it alone for most of your life. And every time you go alone and have what you consider to be a win or a success, or you're able to manage, you just confirm the old rule. And like anything else, to get through this, we have to break the pattern that's occurring presently. Something you can do to break through that this week is to find something small and specific that you can ask for help on. Make it be something that you definitely would not normally ask for help on. Maybe it even seems silly or subtle. And when you do that, notice what you're experiencing. And if you're really uncomfortable, stay with it. Begin to notice it. And then notice what happens on the other side of it. Alexithymia. This is somebody who really has trouble identifying their emotions or connecting their body and sensations to their emotions. This might be somebody asks you how you're feeling, you give them a status report. Or you would say, I'm fine, delivered with the same energy that you might give a quarterly update at work. And if this is you, chances are in some way your feelings were ignored. Maybe you were punished for having feelings, or maybe they got used against you. However it occurred, translating emotion into information is probably how you stayed safe. And that has you living very much in your head. We call them feelings because we feel them. Emotions and feelings are not something we experience in our mind. They might be triggered by thought, but we experience in our body. I hear all the time people telling me they're very disconnected from what they feel in their body. And I actually believe it might be the other way, that they have become so in tune to the emotional state of others that they can smell something difficult coming, almost like a bloodhound. They can smell something coming miles away and they shut down and go in their head. These people that will seem insensitive, I think, are often the most sensitive. Simply put, the body really knows before the mind does. But in order to start building a different relationship with your emotions and your body, we do it in reverse. Once you recognize that you're having a challenge, that you're playing out this strategy, just stop. Sit somewhere, stand somewhere, and just notice. Like literally scan your body. Notice where you're feeling tension, where you're feeling comfort, where you're feeling discomfort, where you're feeling motion, where you're feeling temperature. Don't worry about putting the label of emotion to it. Just notice what's occurring in your body. And as you do that over time, you can start to build that relationship. The over-apologizer. You apologize before someone even finishes their sentence. And you're apologizing for your opinion, your presence, maybe even just your existence in the room. Making yourself smaller or trying to keep the peace was the way you managed somebody else's emotion before it arrived. And if this is you, just start noticing when you apologize. When you recognize that you either want to apologize or you just have, ask yourself, was there an actual offense there? Is there something that I really needed to apologize or make amends for? Or did this old code just fire? Just begin to become aware of it. Nothing else to do with it yet. Just begin to notice it. I want to pause here a moment and recognize that as you're listening to this, if you relate to it, you might be experiencing something. Maybe there's recognition or discomfort or maybe even some relief. What I really want to say is that if you're doing these things, or you're finding yourself acting out in the same ways, these aren't symptoms necessarily of damage or that you're doing something wrong. The code worked. It just is being applied in an environment that you no longer need, that at some point in your life, you needed it. And another thing I'd like to say is this is not about blaming your families of origin. This is not about blaming your parents or caregivers. This is about understanding how you were shaped and how life will flow through you under stress. So the question isn't necessarily what went wrong. The question is what keeps all of this running now that the room has changed? And now we'll get back to it. The movers. These are people who have to keep moving. You maybe feel guilty when you're resting. It's Sunday morning, there's nothing on the calendar, there's nothing immediate for you to do, and within 15 minutes, you found something to fix or written a to-do list that's 10 pages long. Often this comes from an environment where stillness in the home meant something was wrong or something bad was coming, and activity was how you stayed ahead of it. You just keep moving. Like a shark that can't fall asleep, they have to keep moving and have water move through their gills. In order to stay in front of the discomfort, you had to keep busy. And what's important to recognize now is that rest is not in opposition to safety. And rest is not the absence of productivity. In order to be most effective and efficient in the world, it is so important to get rest and to find stillness, that being still can be safe. And if this is you, start with a few moments, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, where you're just going to sit, be still, and notice. Begin to expand that over time. Allow yourself to begin to practice some rest and stillness. And you can do this by simply taking 1, 2, or 5 minutes and sitting still and just noticing your surroundings. You can use some breathwork tools, or even better, find a non-sleep deep rest or yoga nidra recording and just listen. But allow yourself to be able to expand that tolerance for discomfort in stillness. The Hypervigilant Chameleon. You read the room before you even walk in the door. Maybe you agree out loud and disagree silently. And you monitor everyone's state except your own. You've become really good at predicting the outcome or at predicting the behavior of others. And in many situations it works, but it doesn't work all the time. And especially when you get to emotional relationships, ones with your partner or your children, it can really get in the way and begin to erode those relationships and leave you extremely exhausted. For you reading people with safety, you needed to know what was coming. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people say that when they were 6, 7, 8, 10 years old, they could tell how easy or tough their night would be by how their dads shut the door to the car when he came back from work, or what his energy was like when he walked in the door. And this is not only with fathers, but kids become very aware of their surroundings so that they can begin to predict what they need to make it through. Knowing what was coming or being able to predict it gave you the time you needed to adapt. For you, intentionally enter one room this week without reading it. Before you go in, notice what you're experiencing, pause, notice your thoughts, notice your emotions, notice the discomfort, and give yourself the freedom to walk in and be yourself. See if you can do it. Don't do it in the most important meeting you have in the biggest room you're walking into. Try it at a lunch or with a small group of people. And as you sit there, notice what comes up. Notice if it's very challenging to do or if it's easy. Notice if it's uncomfortable, or notice if you fall back into the pattern of trying to predict what they're going to say, and adapt your behavior to get accepted. Just become aware of it. The caregiver. You're the one who fixes everyone else's life while yours stays stagnant. Maybe you're regulated at work and in all situations with other people around you, and when you're alone, you're completely dysregulated. Being useful was how you secured your place. You were most likely given a job by your caregivers that was, as we say, above your pay grade, that you either had to emotionally or physically or financially care for your parents or siblings, and you were thrust into that role. And maybe it was out of necessity because parents were working and there were a lot of kids in the home, or a parent was sick, or one had died. Again, this isn't about blaming, it's about understanding that when you're thrust into a role like this, without some sort of resolution, you're going to continue to play it out through the rest of your life. And so the helper role feels safer than being the one who gets help, being the one who needed something. And you become needless and want less. And what you can begin to practice is not to necessarily yet dive into asking for help like we did with one of the other strategies, but first just to begin to notice when you move towards someone else's problem to avoid sitting in your own. Because the code's gonna fire fastest when your discomfort goes unnamed. So notice when you do it, recognize the discomfort, name it, meaning recognize the sensations you're experiencing in your body, the thoughts you're experiencing in your mind, and just begin to become aware of it. Track it. The ancient Greek Epictetus said that the chief task in life is this: to identify and separate manners so that you can clearly say which ones belong to you and which ones don't. The strategies on this list were never who you were, and they aren't who you are. They were a child's best solutions to the conditions of the environment that they were in. The conditions changed and the code didn't get the memo. And here's the part that nobody tells you. Understanding where these habits come from is not going to stop them. The code doesn't update simply because you trace it back to its origin. It updates when your nervous system has enough evidence that the new environment is safe. And that's the work. We build capacity in the nervous system to experience discomfort, to build emotional resilience and distress tolerance, to really learn how to feel bad so that we can move through this emotional discomfort without making choices out of that old code. So you can start this week. You can start right now. The next time you feel the urge to pick up and carry something that's not yours, or to fix the quiet when nothing's actually wrong, or apologizing for taking up space in a room that you belong, pause. Don't fight it. Don't shame yourself for it. Just name it. Notice it. Become aware of it. Thoughts, emotions, sensations in your body. And remind yourself, this is the code. It's doing its job perfectly for the room that it was developed in, but the room has changed. That's it. Nothing dramatic. That pause is how the update begins. If one of these 6 things we talked about today showed up for you, please let me know by putting in the comments. I read them, and I want to know which piece of code is running loudest now. Thank you for watching. If this video is valuable for you, please like, comment, subscribe, and share with somebody else that you think it would be helpful for. As always, thank you. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one.